delay, but yeah, hi everyone. This is Lokesh from the Soul Freedom Show, and we have a very special guest today. We have Jacob Angeli, all the way from Arizona. He's a very good friend of mine. He's doing great work. I'll let one second. Let me just mute. I think I have some live thing going on. Okay, yeah, now we're good. Hi, Jake. How are you doing? I'll let you introduce yourself, man.
Hi, I'm Jake Angeli. I'm on YouTube. If you want to check out my YouTube channel, I've got a lot of information on there. It's a Starseed Academy channel. That's 4 different words: stars in the sky, seed is what you put in the ground, Academy channel. I've got everything on there from aliens to ancient civilizations, from government cover-ups to the type of technology that we actually have at our disposal, like zero-point energy, inertial propulsion. I got stuff on there about how to fix the education system, how to fix the healthcare system, how to fix the whole pharmaceutical industry, so many different things. The foster care system. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff on there.
I know there's so many rabbit holes we can go into, but talking about rabbit holes, so let's start from your background, because that would be a good rabbit hole. Just a little bit, how you got started on this path?
Well, I've always been into the truth about reality and God ever since even like my early childhood. I've always wondered, like, what is reality all about? What is God? Who is God? What is my relationship to all of it? And I never got the answers I was looking for from my parents, from church, from any book, though I did, believe in God and in Jesus and, in the idea of holiness or enlightenment. I didn't fully understand why I believed it. So I began to search, not just deep inside myself, but outside of myself, in doing research and looking into ancient writings, looking into the life of Jesus and the truth about that, or more than anything, looking into the true nature of reality and the true nature of God and how the two were one.
Right. And so you're originally from Arizona, or?
Yes. I was born and raised here. I mean, when I was in the Navy, I journeyed all over the globe just to come back to Arizona and realize what a special place this really is. And it will always be my home.
Right. So for people who don't know much about, all because I believe you have some, like you said, Navy background, and I believe it's called Admiral. So I'll
Oh,
let you.
yeah.
So would you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, that whole thing is regarding, my relationship to the Q movement, the dissemination of highly classified information, because I haven't signed any non-disclosure agreements. I haven't signed any above top secret contracts. So what that is like way later on in my life and in my journey, that is like the crescendo of everything that has been going on with like the Q movement, with relationship to getting rid of all these child sex trafficking rings, getting rid of the cabal, dissolving these evil networks, etc.
Right. And since you mentioned Q, again, people who don't know, you want to give a quick wrap
Sure,
around Q?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Q is the highest levels of the military and the intelligence community disseminating above top secret information to patriots in the republic, so that we can take back our country from evil globalists, communists, and Satanists who are trying to monopolize all of the resources and all the labor in our country, so that they can turn us like a gear in a machine of this like massive one world government, globalist new world order system. So what they've done is they've used pedophilia and child sex trafficking and blackmail as like a vital piece to this whole globalist system that they've created, this massive machine that is essentially monopolizing all the resources and all the labor all over the planet to create wealth and abundance for less than 1% of the population. So because this is actually like a real threat to our national security as a nation, as like a people, the military, the intelligence community, they have stepped forward, and patriots are in control. That's one of the slogans in the Q community and the Q movement is patriots are in control, because now patriots who have been appointed to the highest levels of unelected power and are now behind the use of above top secret weaponry that once Satanists were using, that infiltrators were once using. And now patriots are in control of this weaponry, and the hunters have become the hunted. At least that's part of the movement as well. It's one of the common things that's said, and it's because all these pedophiles that were using their code and using this protection they essentially had in the government through corruption, now they have become the hunted. They were using this technology to hunt children. Now they have become the hunted by patriots and by people that know the code in the Q movement.
Right. So it's kind of a little bit of a secretive kind of a mission, I would say. It's not very public. Is there any reason why it has not been made so public? I mean, I know one of the reasons. Yeah, because I know the media doesn't want to talk about it, but even in general, not many people know about it.
Well, here's the thing. It isn't very secret because people all over the globe know it, and millions of people. It's been made to look like a fringe conspiracy theory on behalf of the Mockingbird media because it poses a very real threat to the monopoly on the minds that they've had over the people, not just in the United States, but all over the globe for quite some time.
Right.
And when we understand that the coronavirus, this COVID-19 84 scenario, the BLM riots and looting, when we understand that that is essentially like a cover for this truth about the child sex trafficking, about the abduction of children, over 800,000 children go missing every year in the United States, that it's actually all like rooted into these child sex trafficking networks and the blackmail and all that stuff. And that's the reason why they're not saying anything about it in the media. They're just calling it a conspiracy theory because the media has been complicit in this for some time. The media knew about Jeffrey Epstein years ago, and they chose to do nothing with the story. That's just all there is to it. And the media knew about people like Harvey Weinstein. They chose to do nothing with the story because certain people in, say, Hollywood or in Washington or in the media were owned or were a part of this cabal that was trying to create this essentially communist dictatorship in our government, in our country.
Right. And where does Donald Trump come into the picture? Because I know he's like a major part of that.
Well, keep in mind how a lot of these politicians have been corrupted is not just through blackmail, but also through bribery. So, for example, a really, really wealthy family or a really, really wealthy individual will come forward, let's say, for example, George Soros, and say, I will deposit $100 million in your account. All you need to do is pick up the phone every time I call and do as I ask. And there's people like Hillary Clinton that'll say, all right, I'll do that. Sign me up. So that's why people like Hillary Clinton have vouched for people like George Soros.
Right.
And it is these corrupt assets in the military, in the military industrial complex, in the cabal, in the deep state that have really become the agents for this massive amount of destructive change in the United States. I didn't really answer your question though, did I?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm trying to understand is Trump part of the Q movement?
Oh, right. Thank you. So Trump isn't one of these people that can be bought this way. Do you understand? So that was meant to be the conclusion of all of that. That Trump made his money on his own. And people like Jeffrey Epstein were kicked out of places that Trump owned the moment that he found out that he was like hitting on 15-year-old girls inside of his establishment. And the moment that Epstein was arrested, if I'm not mistaken, according to things that I've read, Trump went straight to the police and told them everything and anything they wanted to know and told them everything that he knew. So for quite some time, Trump has, first of all, been trying to expose this stuff and trying to end it, especially in places like New York, but also the military, the people in the intelligence community approached Donald Trump and said, hey, you can't be bought, man. And because you can't be bought, can you please just run? You're not going to, you're not going to get very much funding from all these rich people, but you will definitely have a following in the country, and we will protect you. We will ensure that nothing happens to you. Because the fact of the matter is, for quite some time, like I said, evil people were in control of this technology. So that he had to have some certain guarantees, I'm sure, in order to run, and the military guaranteed him safety. And so he's now doing for the American people what people like JFK wanted to do in the 60s.
Right, right. So yeah, there are also some people who talk about JFK Jr., that he was going to be the next, savior or whatever, but I think he got eliminated. But now there's people like Austin Steinbart.
Steinbart.
Yeah, there's a few people
Yeah.
who, so what do you believe, what do you think about all the people who are coming out now saying they're part of the Q movement, or they are Q?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that anybody that comes out and says that those words, I am Q, probably isn't. Right. And I will also say that I believe that personally, I believe Q is multiple people. That's why I think that anybody that would step forward and say, I am Q is like, I don't know, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot there. Q is multiple people, in my opinion. Right. It's the highest levels of the military and the intelligence community. So to isolate one person as Q, I think maybe some people's mistake. That doesn't mean that the Q movement won't have a leader at some point that is a clearly identified one. And I think that's what this whole idea about JFK Jr. is all about, is establishing within the minds of the people in the Q movement that there is some sort of tip of the spear, as it were. And JFK Jr., I think, is that person, but I don't think it's actually JFK Jr. What I think it is, like physically as a person, I think JFK Jr. is a metaphor for somebody that is picking up JFK's mantle, that is picking up from where he left off, because JFK was talking about getting rid of the petrodollar and the debt-based currency through having a silver-backed currency in the treasury. Mm-hmm. He was also talking about getting rid of the CIA because of all the evil stuff they were doing regarding the trafficking of children and of underage girls and all sorts of other stuff, prostitutes and all sorts of other craziness all over the globe. Mm-hmm. He was also wanting to expose the truth about extraterrestrials and aliens. Okay. Right. So I think that whoever it is that picks up where that man left off is your JFK Jr.
Right, right. So it's a movement. It's not one person claiming that. We cannot necessarily trust that person because there's also disinformation, right?
Well, and one thing I also think is really interesting is that disinformation is a part of all psychological operations. They're part of, when you look into intelligence, you better believe there's going to be some disinformation in there. There's going to be some real information in there. Right. And then there's going to be a mix of the two, which is the misinformation that is like the interpretation of the truth and the lies together. Okay. Right. And a lot of the time people swim in the truth and the lies together and they're trying to discern which is which. Yeah. All right. And if you just go to my YouTube, pretty much every single question that we have regarding aliens, regarding the CIA and all the type of stuff that happens with, within their organization or has happened over the centuries, over the decades, and how it relates to what's been going on for centuries. Mm-hmm. All that stuff is in my videos. All that stuff is in my YouTube. Everything that the cabal doesn't want you to know is there. And yeah. I quote Kennedy quite a lot.
Right, right. Yeah, your videos are very informative. So talking about the cabal, like some people call it deep state. So you think it's like you said, it's centuries old, but currently with all these sealed indictments and stuff like that, how much do you think has already been eliminated?
Well, it really all depends on what exactly you mean by eliminated.
Meaning, yeah, arrested, whatever, killed, whatever.
Well, I think that there's a whole lot more going on below the surface than people are seeing because the media isn't saying anything about it. When we look at the amount of resignations from CEOs over the last just couple of months, let alone the last several years, we're talking thousands.
Right.
Okay. And when we understand that what the deep state is the deep state is a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, scientific, economic, and political operations. Okay.
Right.
And when we grasp that this deep state has assembled vast human and material resources, which basically means infiltrators, to create and erect this thing based off of unelected positions of power being corrupted for extended periods of time, along with elected positions of power being corrupted for several, terms at a time, then we can see how this deep state thing has flowed, how it's been created, and how essentially the swamp was created. And Trump is like the antithesis of that swamp. The JFK Jr. is the antithesis of the swamp and is essentially changing the landscape of the country.
Right.
Does all that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Especially now the elections are coming up. There's a lot of propaganda stuff that's going on media. I mean, they've always been criticizing Trump, but what do you think? I don't know, you cannot see the future, but what do you think is going to happen in the next few months?
Well, to be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw certain areas of the country get better, get worse. I think that all based on the leadership, we're going to see which areas of the country are going to remain stable and which ones are really going to get bad. And I think that what I see more than anything, I don't really worry too much about the near future. I think Donald Trump's going to win the election. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. Joe Biden isn't even a candidate. You know what I'm saying? He's not
He's
a
capable,
joke.
right? Yeah.
So because he's not really able, and people like Kanye West aren't able, and because Donald Trump has been doing so well for so long, for the last several years, I think people want to give him another shot. I think that they believe that he can turn this economy around again if we can just get through this COVID 1984 scenario. Regarding the future of humanity, however, what I see is the truth about these pedophiles at the highest levels breaking through the dam of the mockingbird media. And eventually when people like Hillary Clinton start going down, when people like Barack Obama start going down, I think that people are really going to start seeing reality differently. And I think that there's going to be some areas of the country that end up experiencing turmoil because of that cognitive dissonance. And then there's going to be other areas that are celebrating like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I know. It's like, sometimes I think of the phrase ignorance is bliss. Like some people don't even know what's going on. They're still happy. So it just depends on how much of the rabbit hole you want to take in, right?
Yeah. The fact of the matter is this stuff makes a lot of people uncomfortable.
Right.
Because it causes cognitive dissonance. It's new information that challenges previously established views of reality. And that ends up triggering emotional responses to threats. And people basically treat this new idea like it's some sort of a rabid dog in the wilderness, when more than anything, what it is it's new information that challenges their view and shatters their paradigm.
Right. And so switching gears a little bit, you talked a little bit about the technologies. The deep state has some which are secretive, but even our government has some, what Tesla used to talk about, things like that. And from what I understand, a lot of that is going to come out. And I know you talk about it in some of your videos. So do you want to share where we can go in the future regarding those technologies?
Absolutely. I would love to talk about that. Okay. So we've had this technology for literally over 100 years. And it's actually the discovery of an even further back ancient technology that a lot of people call the ancient builder race knew and understood. And that's the reason why we see all these monolithic structures, et cetera, is because they understood technology and they understood electromagnetism in a whole other way. All right. And they understood more than anything what Nikola Tesla came to understand. And that is that there are these electromagnetic ley lines on the earth. Okay, and these electromagnetic ley lines can be used to either transport stones or to stack stones on top of one another and channel large amounts of energy, all sorts of stuff. Okay, so when Nikola Tesla discovered this truth about amplifying the electromagnetic pulse of the earth itself to create a wireless electromagnetic signal that could be used anywhere and everywhere within a certain radius of the pyramid, he came to understand that this could be used to liberate the people of the United States, of the world, from the use of coal, oil, all sorts of other fossil fuels, whatever. He realized that it was no longer necessary, and he tried to bring this to the people. It was sabotaged. Nikola Tesla was smeared by J.P. Morgan and his disinformation agent, Thomas Edison, who took basically all of Tesla's ideas, smeared Tesla, suppressed him. And that's where this whole idea of like a mad scientist came from, was from the smear campaign of Nikola Tesla. So we've had that technology for over 100 years. We've also had a technology that Dr. Reif discovered in the early 1930s, based off of Nikola Tesla's discoveries, where you could essentially kill any and every disease in the body. You could kill the AIDS virus, you could kill any infection, you could kill cancer and just watch it melt away, all by hitting the body with certain frequencies that the tissue of the body has no problem handling. But the cancer really just falls apart. It just dies, okay? So these are called disruptive patents. And because they're disruptive patents, they have been kept from the public because they would disrupt our economy. When in reality, what would happen is they would disrupt the Illuminati, monopoly, international bankers' plans for world domination. Okay. And because they essentially own the government through the central banking system, they have basically been ruling our lives ever since. So the type of technology that we have has actually just been released to the public by the Navy with the release of a 0-point energy device, a room temperature superconductor, and a inertia propulsion or anti-gravity craft type technology, the TR-3B essentially. And we can actually combine all of these things together to create a whole fleet of these types of vehicles. This is where we're getting the Space Force from, is these like triangular vehicles and the release of these patents. But here's the best part, okay? The best part is, because these patents have been released to the public, they have now been public domain for quite some time, which basically means that the ice cream truck is here. I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but that basically means that the ice cream truck is here, okay? And that there's all these treats that we get in the public domain.
Right.
Okay? Anti-gravity and 0-point energy being two of those things. And if we use these things in the free market, we need not worry or depend on the government to provide these things to us.
Yeah, and I mean, that's when we get into suppression, right? Because what happens, from what I know, is somebody comes up with something, they have to get a patent. As soon as they try to get a patent, they suppress it, right?
Well, and that's why I think Trump is so important, because Trump represents the patriots in the republic. Trump represents the patriots in the alliance, or within the good aspects of the military industrial complex, people I call constitutionalist Christians. And there's also some good occult people in there too, that are into like what is known as Gnosticism. So they aren't into the dark side. The Gnostics have been fighting the archons, which are the dark side, for quite some time.
Right.
So there's good aspects to the military industrial complex. There's good aspects to what some people would call the deep state. And what we're witnessing is a war between these two warring factions of above top secret technology. You see, and this involves things like time travel, interdimensional travel, these types of weapons that I'm telling you about, like the psychotronic weapons I've told people about, as well as these craft, these inertia propulsion craft. So it all kind of ties into this interdimensional war. And Trump stepping forward and ending the human trafficking rings is almost like taking away the power structures of this cabal, because they use these human trafficking rings to blackmail people into submission so that they can create this globalist government. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's almost like the quantum feedback loop that you talk about, right? Like they can see into the future with things like looking glass, and that's what makes them see the timelines, and then they pick whatever suits them. But then there's the good guys, like you said, they are doing the same thing. They're trying to kind of neutralize the thing, because they can never be all positive, no because we live in a dualistic three dimension. They will always be negative, but what we're trying to do is kind of neutralize it, right?
Well, what we're doing more than anything is reestablishing balance,
Right.
because the evil negative side grew way, way, way too large.
Right.
And it's because they're into organizing and they're into domination, they're into greed and control. So it takes the good people uniting a lot of the time in the final hours and saying, all right, we got to do something, and that's essentially what we're witnessing is. And it's not so much that they were waiting for the final hours. What it was that because this is warfare, you
Mhm.
have to wait until the perfect time to strike, so that you can guarantee there, not only are you going to strike, but there is no chance for the enemy to retaliate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to almost do like what this sea snake does in the Mediterranean, where they lay on the ocean floor, the sea floor, like they're dead or injured, and a fish will come up and take a bite and then swim away, and
Hmm.
the snake will play dead. Fish will come up and take a bite and swim away. Snake will play dead. And only when the fish gets comfortable, comes up and thinks it's going to eat the snake, does the snake turn around and bite the fish and eat the fish. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what has been done here regarding the alliance versus the cabal, regarding the good people in the military industrial complex versus the bad ones. Is it's almost like they lured them into a trap and then finally grabbed them and got them. And now they have all of this legal evidence, especially considering the confiscation of Anthony Weiner's laptop. They now have
Mhm.
all of this evidence that
Mhm.
all these people are involved in these crimes, and there's no getting around it. But the thing is, what you got to keep in mind is it would take so many years in the courts, and the courts are pretty much corrupted anyway. But
Right.
what the deep state has done is they spent the last several years cleaning up certain aspects and factions of the military to implement this plan.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that then when the time came, they would just do these military tribunals. They would be able to skip all of the corrupt courts and then put these real traitors through the military system, military justice system, because they would essentially be being tried as prisoners of war, or as infiltrators or traitors. You see what I'm saying?
So it's kind of like they want to do it the right way. Because if they just go all out and go with it, the enemy, they'll have other plans. They can see what we're doing, but it's all happening behind the scenes. But you're saying that we're gonna see the truth come, just like it's coming out now with Jeffrey Epstein and other stuff, the the arrests, and even COVID-19 is helping in that cause, because they're kind of using that. From what I understand, like you said, it's a chess game. So just they came up with COVID-19, but now they're using it to our advantage, because now they can see what the enemy is doing, right?
Right. Well, it's kind of like in martial arts. All martial arts are self-defense techniques. And the
Right.
reason why is because whenever somebody's going to attack you, usually they leave some portion of their body open and vulnerable to attack. So the
Right.
whole idea is you have to use the enemy's momentum or the enemy's attack against them. And you have to use that to your advantage. So if, for example, in the martial art form Mantis, where you use your fingers to strike the pressure points of your opponent, what happens is that you wait for that opponent to make a move, you wait for them to attack you, and then they will leave at least one of their pressure points open, and you just exploit that pressure point really quickly and easily, and you can seize up the whole body. In some cases you can paralyze people with these techniques. So the idea is to do this to the enemy. The idea is to do this to the opposition or to the cabal. And we have to realize that there are multiple aspects to the cabal's nervous system within the United States. And we have to hit each of these vital nerves at a very specific time and in a very specific way in order to bring down the nervous system, in order to bring down the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. And then people who are not at that frequency or the level of understanding of what's going on, or they don't want to look at the dark side and stuff like that. From what I understand, at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, they're taken out. They may not even know about it. It's like they were not even matching to the frequency of understanding what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm just talking about, majority of the people don't know what's going on. So they may not need to know about this stuff, right?
Well, the fact of the matter is, I think that's part of the reason why things are being done with the Q movement the way that they are, because the choice to know will be yours. Right. And it's a way that people can choose to either know the truth or not, but either way, the change is happening.
Right.
You see what I'm trying to say? It's like it may not be on CNN. You're probably not going to see it on CNN. The real truth? No, probably not. But if you do the research, you can find it. It's out there.
Right.
And I think that's what's most important about the Q movement, is that if you look into the Q movement, more than anything, what Q does is Q verifies everything that everybody else already knew. It's just a new way of doing it, verifying it through things like timestamps and stuff like that to prove, hey, we have this looking glass technology. We have this ability to look into the future. We have this ability to affect the timeline. We have the ability to, change things, et cetera, et cetera. It's on another level. But how are you going to verify that type of technology with the public without coming right out on television and telling everybody this is what we have? You would show them how it could be used to help save the dang country.
Right. Actually connected. I don't know if it's connected to what you're talking about. There's a quick question from Anne. Do you mind if I take a quick question?
Take questions, please.
Yeah, so Anne T is asking, not Auntie, but Anne is her first name and T is her last name. She's not my auntie. What is the difference between you doing the shamanic work in meditation, like with the lightning in DC, and you doing the work where you wear your hat and paint your face in the physical 3D in Arizona? I don't know if it makes sense.
Oh, that's a beautiful question. That's a great question. Yeah. Okay, so look at it like this. When I'm doing the stuff where I'm creating the storms, what I'm doing is I'm sitting extremely still and I'm being extremely quiet. And in this stillness and in this quiet, I become like a statistical anomaly. And when I'm able to focus my mind on whatever it is that wherever it is I'm trying to bilocate, that's how it is I'm able to create such a electromagnetic disturbance or create such an electromagnetic anomaly in space-time in more than one location. Now, when I'm going in and doing something like what I do, say, outside the COVID-19 84 testing site or in my city or, at the ASUA mountain or whatever, the difference really between the two is kind of minimal. I'm kind of doing one in a metaphysical way and the other I'm doing in a physical way by actually going out there and singing and drumming and, projecting my voice. That's a large amount of vibration that I'm sending off. And based on the technique that I use, which is like a Mongolian technique, but they also do it in Norway where they in the back of the throat. Yeah. What I'm doing is I'm creating large waves of sound that echo throughout the ecosystem and they drive away evil spirits. So if you look into the video that I show you about the Q storms where I'm screaming in the sky and lightning's coming and all that stuff, I'm essentially doing something like that, except I'm doing that in like the higher realms. I'm doing that in like the realms above the physical. But when I'm doing that stuff on the mountain or when I'm doing that stuff in like in the vampire's den, like I was on 5th and Mill, then essentially I'm actually doing both at the same time. Except because it's like a physical thing, there isn't like, I'm not creating a massive storm. It's like I am the storm. because
Right.
the electromagnetic vibrations that are coming off of my body, along with the sound waves that are coming off my body, actually disturb the quantum entanglement of the entire area that I'm in. And that's part of why going to certain sacred sites and doing these songs and stuff like that is so important, because you're actually, it's almost like you're setting the tone for the fractal of the ecosystem by going to this place that is in the environment that has a large effect on the rest of the ecosystem and creating positive vibes. You can end up allowing those positive vibes to spread. So that's why it's important to go to places that are sacred, or go to places that have been like tarnished, like in Mill Avenue, and do cleansings. And I don't know if people saw, but there was a gentleman going around with sage on rollerblades. His name was Paul, if I'm not mistaken. And he was going around with sage, and he was on rollerblades doing his thing. That was also helping to cleanse that area. And I also did a song, a drumming and a singing song with another dude that was on the street named Cookie as well. So coming together as a community, spreading positive vibes, singing songs, using drums, and this drives away the evil. This drives away the negative spirits.
Right. And so with the whole COVID-19 thing, since people are mostly at home, I mean, I'm just trying to think, how do you think, like, people have started going out, but how can we build those communities where we need that, unity to make this happen, the movement, the positive movement? Like, do you recommend anything, like things like activism? Because I know you're very active in the activism community. Do you recommend people do anything?
Absolutely. I think that the reason why we're in the mess that we're in is because we haven't been active enough as citizens, as individuals, and as a collective, as like cities and states. We haven't been active in our community. And if we really understand the founding principles, and we understand the founding documents and the Constitution and stuff, then if we would just take care of things here in our own states or here in our own cities and stuff like that, then that would reflect in things being taken care of in Washington. You know what I'm saying? So we as individuals have a real opportunity, especially in the United States of America, of all places, to have a real impact on the government and on the political landscape. We can have real citizen representatives, as opposed to these politician representatives who don't represent the people at all, but only represent, say, their corporate interest or the bankers that are financing them, or represent the pedophile network that they frickin' are a part of. You know, we can have real representatives, real senators, real congressmen, real judges. And these people can actually have a real impact on the future of our civilization. But a lot of the time, the cabal, the evil side, they're so intent on control. They're so intent on like greed and subversion, that they a lot of the time fight and fight and fight and fight. They do not stop until they get these positions of power. And so that's why it's up to us as citizens to play a vital role in our government, in our children's lives, in schools and stuff like that. Don't just leave it to the government to teach our kids. Actually have some sort of an active role in the education of our children, whether it be at home or going to their school. We as individuals are the change that we are hoping to see. That's the only way we're going to see it. We're never going to get it from people like Joe Biden. And the only reason why I think we're getting it with Donald Trump is because he is one of these people that is a genuine American citizen that wants to see America do well. And for the last 30, 40 years, he's been saying the exact same things he's saying now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So to me, it's like, okay, that's a record you have to trust. You know what I mean? If a man is saying the same things for 30, 40 years, and he's all the while been asked several times if he can run for president, he's like, no, I don't think so. I mean, if I had to, I would, but I'm more, he's not interested in power. That shows he's not interested in power. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't a young guy interested in power. Now he's an older man. He should be retiring on his billions, and he's working as the president, getting ridiculed day and night. So I think that he's an example of what every American citizen can become if we just work for it, if we just put America first, if we put service to others first, service to children first, whatever.
Yeah, related to that, Crimson is asking a question. You mentioned in one of your videos that we can help drive these bad in quotes out of this planet, and for it not to never to return. Can you explain exactly how we can do this as individuals?
Yes, absolutely. So if we understand that the electromagnetic vibration of the human body, of the electromagnetic field around the body, the vibe of these individuals plays a large role in the collective mind of our species, then part of why the Q movement is so powerful is that there's so many people that understand this code and that they've aligned with this idea of defending our children. And this is something that has been processed in each person's mind individually. They've come to these conclusions themselves. And around these same conclusions that they've come to independently, they unite. And that strengthens the mind of our species.
Mm-hmm.
So the more people that recognize this pattern, whether it be with these pedophiles and their code, or it be this black magic stuff that they've been into for quite some time, and the way that it's all related to the dark side of the occult and, inviting of evil interdimensional forces and all that stuff. Once people understand that, cognizing all that information, believing that it's true, processing it, will end up affecting the multidimensional nature that we have to it. That, I think, will help people to understand their individual role in it, because the more that they change, the more that they grasp about this stuff, and then they help others, then the more they'll see these changes in society, because everything is a fractal. So the whole idea is that in like a consciousness way, we're going from like a sleeping unaware consciousness to a waking aware consciousness. It's almost like our species as a collective is waking up from a very deep sleep where we forgot the truth about our past, where we forgot the truth about what it is that we're capable of understanding in our relationship to each other, to the stars, to the very earth itself. And we're coming back to that realization. We're coming back to our relationship with Source after this long slumber. And each individual that wakes up in the dream helps others to wake up and helps us to wake up as a collective. And if you're talking about like what kind of tactics you can use, well, that's where things like singing, drumming, going to sacred sites, or going to church. Going to church is a good thing. That's where things like doing meditation and prayer come in. That's where doing these like holy voyages, or these vision quests and stuff like that, that's where this stuff comes in. Because as you do this, you are pushing the consciousness boundary. You're pushing your fear away. You are pushing away any sort of doubt in yourself that you can't overcome any obstacle. And that puts that into the grid system of humanity. So if you're drumming, if you're singing and you get exhausted and you're like, man, I don't know if I can keep going. Well, sing another song, man. Push a little bit, and you'll see that push of your positive energy and your prayer actually having that much more of an effect. Because it's like working out. If you don't feel the burn, you're not getting much out of it.
Right.
So I guess to answer the question, to kind of wrap it all up, each and every individual act of evolution that you make changes things drastically. Mm-hmm. And the more of these acts that you do or make each and every day will, once again, change things even more drastically. And eventually, after days and days of doing this, these things stack on top of each other, and they can end up changing things far more drastically than you ever thought possible. The real trick is convincing yourself the first day or two or three to keep going.
Right. So Crimson is also asking, yeah, we have to get spiritually active, but we will need a guide though. Do you think we need guides like yourself, or everyone can do it individually?
I'll put it this way. I had guides at first. I listened to people like Ram Dass. I listened to people like Terrence McKenna. I listened to people like Alan Watts. I listened to people or read books like, philosophy books. I looked into to Nietzsche and what's his name?
Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Eckhart Tolle.
I can
I've
read your
looked
mind.
I've looked into these people,
Yeah.
and I've listened to everything they've had to say for the most part. I've listened to hours. Greg Braden is another really good one.
Yeah.
I've listened to a lot of these people, and ultimately the thing I've found is common amongst all of them is the idea that, first of all, they all say that everything is one. Secondly, they say the whole thing about the golden rule, like what Jesus said, treat people the way you want to be treated, you know. And lastly, they all say that spiritual liberation is something that you can achieve without the need for a guru.
Right.
That you can achieve it if your heart is pure, if your intentions are pure. So I'm of the belief that anybody that's a guru that tells you that you need them is not a guru.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that is trying to teach you something is not going to have their own personal agenda behind it, but rather your personal agenda behind their teaching. But teachers are good. If you need the help, then fine. But there's a saying, the fish trap exists because of the fish. Once you have the fish, you can forget the trap. The rabbit snare exists because of the rabbit. Once you have the rabbit, you can forget the snare. So the idea is that, okay, you can have a guru, you can have a guide. That's all fine, well, and good. But the whole point is to have this guide or this guru or whatever guide you to your own best self, to the point where you don't need one, where you get the message. And it's the same thing with the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita, where it's like you're supposed to absorb the message. And if you have to do that again and again and again, that's good, fine. But the point is that eventually, once you get the message, you don't necessarily need the book anymore because it's all written in your heart. You know what I'm saying? Right. You've read it so many times that you can quote it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. One thing that I always wanted to ask you, you talked about going to the sun or something like that. Like, do you mind sharing what sun is? Because sun is a huge part of our living. Obviously, we can't survive without the sun. And I know you've had some experiences there. So do you mind sharing that?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So you're saying like the what it was like going and flying to the sun and being on the surface and all that?
Yeah, even before that, how do you even do it? Like, do you do like astral travel or things like that?
Yes. Well,
okay.
Everything is interconnected through spin. Right?
Yeah.
So all that's happening is that there's these different octaves of spin, higher and lower octaves of spin. And these higher and lower octaves of spin end up affecting which version of reality you create, right? And so your spin of your electromagnetic field affects the spin of everything, right? So when you harmonize with the field of the earth, then you can end up tuning up and harmonizing with the field of the sun. And then eventually you can get to a point to where you're there.
Yep.
Okay. Now, the times that I went there, I'm not going to lie to you, I was on medicine. I had the medicine in my system and I was doing breathing techniques, but those weren't the only times. I can go there like that because I've done this so many times, now all I have to do is match the frequency. Now all I have to do is reach that chakra. And it may take some time, it may take 5-10 minutes or something like that. But regardless, I'm able to do it. So it's going to take some practice. Like I said, it's like working a muscle. You know what I mean? So it takes practice, but eventually you get to a point to where you can exist in these higher octaves of consciousness. And you can astral travel to these locations and bilocate. Because what you got to remember, man, is that you are not your body. Your body is the antenna for you that is the signal. You know what I mean?
So how do you differentiate? Because I know plant medicine makes you do that, but how do you know? I mean, the cliched question, like, how do you know it's an imagination versus truth, right?
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And the fact of the matter is, for quite some time, I didn't know if I was going crazy or not. But because I knew that I was doing these things, but I felt that I was doing them, but I didn't always have the proof. But it was when I started seeing the proof in my reality that I was like, whoa.
Right.
You know, like when I flew to the sun and did what I did, you know, and took out the Cabal's ships and stuff. dude, that I knew I fucking did. I knew I did it. And I was like, well, let's see what happens. And then I went out to walk my dog, and I'm sitting in the dog park at my apartment complex, just kind of looking off in the distance. And I see this massive blue dot, what looks like a comet, like, and shoot down into the desert, like 50, 60 miles away from my apartment complex. And I was like, whoa, what the hell was that? And then not even 30 seconds to a minute later, a freaking military helicopter right over my head, pretty low, and flying over to the location where the blue dot landed. And when I saw that, I was like, whoa. And then the next day, I think it was, or maybe it was the day after, I went to work and I was on the internet and I saw this thing about the blue star Kachina arriving. And I was like, whoa, what? No, that, okay. So I did what I did, and I knew I did what I did. Then I said, okay, let's see what happens. And then all this stuff started to happen. And I was like, whoa. Then when I started listening to David Wilcock, and he started talking about how there was going to be this solar flash, and there was these blue avian beings coming here, and that there was this Kalki avatar that was going to create this solar flash and kill all these evil interdimensional beings and create a new age. And I was like, oh my God, because I never heard anything about that. I never heard anything about that. I never knew about any Kalki avatar. I never knew anything about that. And all the studying, as funny as it is, I never got into it. So when I heard all that, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And then, I started doing this whole thing with the storms, and I started noticing if I were to go into it like in detail, how I know that it is that I'm doing these things, then we'd be here all day.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that also confuses people and confuses me as well is, like, when people talk about all these things, but then they don't happen. For example, 2012, a lot of people, like the false lighters or channelers or whatever, they start saying, oh, this is going to happen. But then it doesn't happen. People are like, oh, they just move on to something else. So, I mean, like a prophecy, I'm talking about prophecy. What do you believe? Can things be prophesized? And are those things real, then, where people get those insights into the future?
Yes, I can speak from personal experience. I knew that Barack Obama was going to be the president in 2004 when he was running for the Senate. I also have had visions of the future regarding the future of our civilization and what it's going to look like and how it's going to operate. And so if you look into like Native American tradition, they predicted the times that we're in right now. We're talking Hopi predictions that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old. They talked about what's happening right now.
But didn't they also say 2012, like?
Oh, if you're talking about that, well, okay. Yeah. So it really all depends on your school of thought on this. Right. Some people say, well, because of the Gregorian calendar, technically 2012 is 2020, and that's why everything is going the way that it is now. Yeah. And I don't think that that's the case. What I think is the case is this. The calendar did, quote unquote, end in 2012, but all that happened there was the beginning of the change in consciousness of the planet from sleeping to waking. Mm-hmm. And the Maya, what happened is they took very deep and long journeys into hyperspace. Mm-hmm. Okay, into the astral realm, into a hyperdimensional perspective where they got to see the everything. Mm-hmm. And then they looked and they're like, oh, that right there, that's when everything changes. Right. Because they went from a really high state to a really low state in consciousness. And this is after the deluge and all that stuff. So because they went from a really high state to a really low state, they were looking, and it's almost like, a bunch of astronauts scrambling on the ground after they get launched out into space, and they're flying for miles and they're at light speed. And then they finally stop, and then they do all the math and they look and they say, okay, how long is it going to take to get back home? 9,000 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, oh my God. And so what we're experiencing is like the crescendo of not just the civilization that was lost, but the civilization that was lost and found, and now is awakening to the reality that was lost so long ago. And 2012 was the beginning of that. It was the move from the age of Pisces to Aquarius, from a sleeping age to a waking age. And that's why what we've seen is more positive change since December 21st, 2012. In the last, say, 8 years, we've seen more positive change than we have in the last 80. And it's because the cabal is dissolving, this black magic stuff is dissolving, this 6,000-year-old death cult is dying and is losing. And it's because all these familial lineages are connected to all this death, decay, and chaos that have happened all throughout the past several centuries, all throughout the past several millennia. And now that we're coming into an awakened age of positivity and love and harmony, these low frequency beings can't take that.
Right.
Are there any other questions? I'm curious. I've been talking a lot.
So I'm reading. Yeah. No, that was all good information. Sorry, I'm also reading the comments, and that's why. So MZ is asking, can you talk about how to defend yourself against counterattacks on our souls?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. So first of all, we have to learn to recognize what is us and what is not us. We have to learn to recognize what feelings are ours and what feelings are not ours. We have to recognize when we're being attacked and when our mind and our heart are being manipulated and when we're just talking down to ourselves or something like that. So that's number one, recognizing when you're being attacked. Number two, when you recognize that you're being attacked, realize the formula to the attack. What are they saying? Are they using fear of death or fear of being hurt, fear of hurting a loved one? What is being used to, compartmentalize your mind? Then from there, you can also sing a song, because what you got to realize is these ancient shamanic songs are tied to like millennia old positive vibrations that you can like latch into with quantum entanglement. And then you can latch onto that positive version of reality through that quantum entanglement and drive away the negative vibes that are trying to bring you down. So these ancient shamanic songs are like a tool, a metaphysical tool to drive away these evil archonic beings or these evil negative thoughts that are being like weaponized and used against you. You can also do things like burning sage. I'll tell you right now, anytime and every time I've done a sage blessing and burned some sage in my home, or used my my feathers or something like that, create positive vibes, holy water, anointing oil, all that kind of stuff, it's legit. It works. Spiritual warfare is real, and you can use these things to defend yourself. And I think the most important weapon of all in the hearts and the minds of a light worker or of a positive being, an empath, is faith in yourself. Know that because you're the one in the body, because you have a body, you are more powerful than any sort of metaphysical or astral entity. And they have to do as you say. Okay. And you just have to have a strong enough vibe to tame that evil spirit or get it out of your vibe, get it out of your space. Say, no, dude, you ain't in control. You're not taking over my sacred space. And I would say lastly, drumming, if you don't have a drum, rattles, and dancing. Okay, because the exercise and the movement plus the sound, that all drives away negativity. And if you understand what it is that I was saying earlier about like going out into these places and emitting an electromagnetic vibration plus a sound vibration and how that's driving away negative entities, just apply that to getting attacked spiritually.
Okay, and what about plant medicine? Because I know you have a lot of experience. Like, how can one use those responsibly? Of course. What are your thoughts on that?
Always do it with a shamanic practitioner, somebody that knows what they're doing, an ayahuasquero, or a real, authentic medicine man or road man. If you can do it that way in the shamanic setting, like in a ceremony, that's what I would recommend, especially for newcomers and first timers. If you get to a point to where you can become a veteran of sorts, then I would say that eyes closed in silent darkness or in meditative trance-like state is probably the way to go. That's how you really get into the deep mental, emotional water. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. You know, when you do that, you will cry. You know, I cry if it's almost like it's not a good trip if I don't at least get one
Yeah,
good cry in.
I
You know what
know.
I mean?
Yeah, I cried a lot too when I had my first time ayahuasca. Like I cried for like probably 6 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's natural. It's totally natural. And the thing is that, you know, I won't cry for 6 hours. I might cry for a good 5 minutes or something like that at the most. But there was a time where I was crying for 10.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So this stuff kind of squeezes the pain out of you. It squeezes the trauma out of you. It allows you to deal with this stuff. And not everybody wants to be a whimpering mess in front of a group of people, you know? So that's why I kind of just keep myself secluded for the most part. I would also say that shamanic songs also come in handy. Drumming, having a good playlist of music. If you're into, like, you really like music, make a playlist so you don't have to be messing with your phone. You don't have to be messing with your iPad or your iPod or whatever. You know, just make a playlist and then just hit play and sit back. I would also say don't go anywhere. Don't ever drive. Don't go to the mall. You know, don't take acid and go
Go
to the
shopping.
movies or go shopping. No, dude, you're misusing it. And especially if it's something like mushroom or the cactus, it will tell you, hey, I don't like this. You're misusing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think like a lot of these medicine have been suppressed? Like, for example, mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms. I've never had. One of the reasons I haven't had it is it's illegal. Do you think they do it on purpose just so that we can get it? We cannot get into those higher states.
Well, I think that the medicine has been made illegal for several reasons. One, it does pose a real threat to antidepressants and stuff like that.
Right.
It also poses a real threat to the paradigm that has been shaped for the people, the brainwashing that has been done by the Mockingbird media. All it takes is one of these experiences to realize that everything that you've been raised to believe could very well be bullshit.
Yeah.
And that is like a, whoa, oh my God type of an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it has this boundary dissolving, because it has this boundary dissolving capability. Right. I think that it's really important that people respect it. You know what I'm saying? That they not abuse it, that they not use it for anything other than spiritual and personal growth. Otherwise, they aren't going to enjoy themselves. And some people can get lost in there. And that's a scary thing. Trust me, having a bad trip is not pleasant.
Also, I've heard people can even lose their mind, right? Like permanently.
Some people.
Yeah.
I mean, what it is that people that are already prone to schizophrenia, like in their families and stuff, it can like unlock that. Now, the thing is, all depending on the shamanic culture, some people don't view quote unquote schizophrenia as a mental illness. They view it as a spiritual gift. And the shaman helps the schizophrenic to learn how to govern their mind in a way that they're almost like tripping all the time. And there's the saying that the schizophrenic drowns in the water that the shaman swims in. Mm-hmm. And so I've tried my best to swim in that water. And that's part of the reason why I kind of warn people when it comes to the plants and the plant medicine. And it's part of the reason why I think it's been made illegal, is because these things, if given to the wrong person, or if just readily available, like cigarettes or alcohol, you can end up causing some problems in people's lives. And people could really end up, you know, because they don't realize they're dealing with power tools of consciousness, they can end up doing a lot of damage to themselves and others. But Denver, I believe it is, and I think portions of California are starting to loosen up on psilocybin in particular, because it has these nootropic capabilities where it, you know, creates new neurons in the brain, and it also disrupts depressive and anxiety like patterns in the brain. Through the unity of all of the neurons in the brain simultaneously, the old neurological patterns are dissolved and these new patterns emerge.
Right. So you're saying like people misuse it and then they go through bad trips or whatever, and that's one of the reasons, you know, the people in control, like they don't want people to kind of misuse that. That's one of the reasons, but the other could be, they don't want us to grow spiritually as well, right?
Yes, yes. And trust me when I say, you start taking something like a psilocybin mushroom, or even the cactus every now and then, your whole view on life changes, man. Everything in the way that you view yourself and your relationship to the environment, to each other, everything changes.
Right, right. So switching gears a little bit, actually, Crimson just asked a question about your academy. So let's talk about the stuff that you do in terms of teaching and sessions and stuff. Like how are you helping people right now?
Well, I have a number of different services on Starseed Academy that anybody can go there and do a $33 1 hour service. Things like karmic repatterning, where we go over, certain traumas in your life or something like that, and go over some karma and help you to repair that karma and spiritually basically evolve and move on from it. We also have things like cognitive repatterning, where we go through different traumas that you've had in combination with different enlightening or positive experiences, and help to get over the traumas and create for more positive thinking. There's stuff on understanding the afterlife, how to get out of what I call the death matrix, which is all of the veils that have been put in front of us, the chemical veils, the propaganda veils, the electromagnetic veils, all of these things that have been put in front of us in our oneness with all creation. And it's about like helping to get rid of all that stuff. And
Right.
so that's just like one of many services. I also have one on how you can like get into what I call the divine matrix, which is the matrix of God, essentially. I have a number of different courses that you can buy in case you don't want or can't afford the mentorship, which is the Starseed Academy Cyber Tribe. I have courses on spiritual self-defense, on how to become a warrior shaman, and I have another one called Divine Clockwork. And that one is about understanding celestial mechanics and quantum physics and kind of combining the two.
Cool. And where can people go to find that stuff?
Oh, here, you know what? Let me put that in the chat box. 1 second here.
Actually, just send it to me, because I'll put it on the YouTube description, because people may not be able to see right now.
Well, that makes sense. 1 second, I'll grab it right now.
All right. I think I already have it. So I'll just post it on it. Oh, you have another one?
Yeah, I have a new one. Yeah, I found it actually here.
Okay.
I'll just send it to you in the chat, and then you can post it in the comments. Is that cool?
Sure. Yeah, I'll do that.
There you go. That's the website.
And sure. Anne is asking, do you also do shamanic soul retrieval?
I will say I've never actually done that personally. I've never tried it. I've never done it. I've never been taught on how to do something like that. Mm-hmm. One thing I can tell you is this: I'll give anything and everything a try. My intuition usually guides me. If I can't do something, if I think it's out of my league, I'll tell you I don't know if I can do this. But I accept pretty much most challenges that I'm given. I'm rather adventuresome in that way.
Okay. So yeah, switching gears again just a little bit. Can you tell a little bit about the financial system? A lot of people talk about the gold standard that's coming up. Some people talk about cryptocurrency. Where do you feel, or where do you think that we're going financially? Because I know money is one of the things that's always on people's mind, and there are always people, many people struggle with that. So how do you think we can kind of come out of that kind of money rabbit hole and, have a positive future?
Well, I would start by saying that we don't want the petrodollar to collapse entirely. Right. What we want to do is we want to have something like what JFK was doing, where alongside the petrodollar, we have something like a gold or silverback currency coming out of the treasury. Now, if we really think about this idea of like seizing the Rothschilds' assets and, because they're racketeering and all that stuff, that in Nasara Jasara, that is the ultimate goal, right? Mm-hmm. That is the ultimate goal, because ultimately everybody in the country has been screwed over by this international racketeering. Okay. Mm-hmm. But if we're going to talk just about the gold standard really quick, we as a citizenry need to ask for that. We need to demand that, and then we will get it. And then from there, the more we invest in that currency, the more that currency will have value, the more that currency will obtain some sort of real value in the economy. And then the petrodollar will slowly fade, but we'll have this thing to fall back on, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of, you know, this whole idea, what I was saying before about like the Tesla coils and my other video about how if we, the citizenry, demand these things and use these things, then we can create this whole other system that is like a backup system or an alternative system to the grid system. And it's the same thing with the financial system. And if we run these things parallel to each other, then we can have both of these things growing simultaneously with one another. And then eventually the old system can just fall away and this new system will be inherited. So the gold standard is largely based off of a much smaller economy, quote unquote, numbers wise, because if you get into this idea that, you know, the only reason why we're able to have trillions of dollars in our economy is because of the fact that we're printing money, and that money has less and less value the more of it we print, then we want our value, we want our currency to have value, which means we don't want to be able to just print trillions of dollars. We want our money to be backed by, say, hundreds of billions of dollars in gold or real currency.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if the numbers are smaller but backed by something real, then the economy is more stable. And it's not in the hands of whoever it is that owns the petrodollar.
Right. So do you think anybody's actively doing that, like in the Q or anybody?
Well, that's part of the reason why I push the issue so much,
Right.
is because I don't necessarily hear everybody pushing Nasara Jasara, and I don't push it in every video, but I've pushed it in so many. If you just watch my Just Take the Red Pill video, it's one of the ways that I conclude that whole series. If you look into my other videos, it's something I bring up a lot, because Nasara Jasara and the gold standard is the future to our civilization. We cannot keep this unstable debt-based petrodollar system any longer and expect to prosper for more than 50 to 100 years, because ultimately all of the economic growth, all of the surplus in our country every year is going back to the people that own the Federal Reserve. We are not able to stack successful quarter upon successful quarter with this debt-based currency. We can't have that profit in the United States if all of that money and all that profit is going to the central bank.
Right, right. Yeah, and since money is such a big part of the system, and we already have a thing called the QAnon movement, I'm pretty sure something is going on behind the scenes, and they talk about it. You know, the Q guys talk about it, and Trump kind of also mentions it sometimes. But again, it's one of those things that go on behind the scenes, right? And from a grassroots level, like you said, you know, people need to talk about it. But is there a way for us to kind of collaborate with those people in control, like, you know, just control? They're not really in control. I mean, like you were saying, we are the government, we should be in control. But since we work and, you know, we live in a world of countries and states and governments, how can we kind of collaborate with those people who make the decisions, right?
Right. Well, I think that's part of the beauty of having somebody like Donald Trump in office, because I think he understands all this, and I don't think he's going to stand in the way of making America great again. And I think that when it comes to the Q movement, Donald Trump, the pushing of these issues, yeah, we may not necessarily see or anybody pushing it as much as we probably should, but the fact that it's a part of the dialogue is huge.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Think about 20, 30 years ago. Was anybody talking about anything like this? No. Think about 20, 30 years ago. Somebody was saying, yeah, there's this Bilderberg group and this globalist organization, and they're trying to monopolize all the resources and the labor. They're killing kids. They're sacrificing babies. They're drinking children's blood. Everybody be like, all right, dude, the loony bin's over there.
Yeah, that's what only Alex Jones was talking about.
And everybody called him crazy. Everybody called him crazy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Queen Redbriar, I think to pronounce.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know her? She's saying,
No.
hi, Jake. Queen Redbriar, she's asking, how about RICOing all the media assets? I don't know what
RICO. Yeah, RICO. That's the racketeering thing that it was basically would allow us to seize all the Rothschild's assets. And I think that maybe things like that are coming. Maybe that's the reason why we haven't seen more of these unsealed indictments, is
Right.
because, you guys keep in mind, if things are as corrupt as we know that they are, then it's going to take a while to round all these people up in a legal way. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, seizing the media assets is a great idea. Absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was a part of the seizing of the Rothschild assets.
What is actually media asset? What does that actually mean?
I think what they're saying is that all the money and all of the as well as all the infiltrators in the media, and how all these people and the way that they've basically used the media to push these globalist companies.
Okay.
And basically to cover up their crimes, all the while pushing their agenda and their corporations and their advertising and stuff like that. And there's some people within these media corporations that are actually complicit in this process, that are actually a part of this cabal. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of them even own like money in like some of the pharmaceutical companies and stuff that advertise on some of these networks.
Yeah, and that's where the whole Bill Gates rabbit hole comes into the picture, because he's connected to so many of these people. Do you want to share a little bit about, especially now, the COVID-19 thing? Like, how do you think we can expose that? I mean, I don't know if exposing is the right word, but how do you think we can kind of, um, use that information that we have about Bill Gates and all that stuff that's going on to our advantage?
And just keep talking about it. It doesn't take a genius to realize it's a very bad idea to trust a pedophile that believes in eugenics and population control, who is not a doctor and not a scientist, to make vaccines. It's really not all that hard to come. I mean, a 5-year-old would go, well, why are we trusting that guy? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
all we have to do is just ask people the logical question. Why are you trusting somebody who's not a doctor, not a scientist, believes in depopulation, believes in eugenics, is a purchaser of over like 1 million shares in Monsanto, which is a bioengineering company responsible for death, decay, cancer, ecocide all over the globe? Why are we trusting this man to make vaccines? Why are we trusting anything he says? The fact that he's connected to people like Fauci, the fact that he's connected to, well, the fact that he made his money because he was a thief, an intellectual property thief. He stole from people that trusted him.
Yeah.
And that's how he made billions of dollars. That tells you everything you need to know. These little fucking weasel.
Now we're talking.
You know what I'm saying?
Now we're talking. Shit is getting real. Yeah.
He's a fucking weasel. He's a little weasel.
Yeah.
He's a con artist. He's a snake oil salesman. He's a piece of shit. He's a pedo. He's a part of these globalist organizations. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he did things like drinking blood and sacrificing children. No, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, there was a picture somebody posted yesterday. He was with Jeffrey Epstein in a picture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he's been to Epstein Island.
Yeah. So Anne is also asking, why do you call COVID-19 84?
Because of the lockdowns are like very 1984. All the propaganda is 1984. This is so Orwellian that for me, I don't call it COVID-19. I don't call it COVID-19. I call it COVID-1984 because that's what it is. Some people call it the China virus. Some people call it, the what is it? The Kung Fu flu. Or
China
something,
flu.
Kung flu, China flu, all sorts of stuff. I call it COVID-19 84 because it's all Orwellian. All of this stuff is Orwellian. It's almost like these communists, these Satanists are treating George Orwell like an instruction manual, not a warning. And if I say COVID-19 84, a lot of people get it. A lot of people get the idea.
Right. So now that we're talking about COVID-19, let's talk about China, because a lot of the economy in the US, like so many products we get from China, like I'm sure most of the stuff that Amazon is selling is from China. And now that a lot of things are getting exposed with the CCP, the Communist Party, and all the negative stuff that's coming out of there, how do you think that situation between US and China is going?
Well,
it's a big rabbit hole, right? Yeah.
I'll say this much.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has done the right thing in his relationship with China. And, me personally, dude, I don't much care for China. You look into what they've been doing to their own people for decades, concentration camps, organ harvesting, child sex trafficking. They're responsible for like ecocide all over their own country and in many other nations. They're responsible for the infiltration into our technology, into our country through buying up land and resources and infiltrating our governments and paying people off. Like, dude, when we really get into China is the antithesis of freedom. China is the antithesis of justice, law, and order. And it's no surprise that this virus came out of China right after the trade agreements. They weren't even, the ink on the trade agreements wasn't even dry yet, and all this stuff happened. And it's because China took an economic hit because they weren't able to screw America over again and again and again. They took the economic hit, and then they're like, well, let's not tell anybody about this virus that we have spreading around in our country. And that's why we've locked down the, Wuhan, and we haven't allowed them to fly anywhere else. But let's just let it fly everywhere else. And then when everybody has it, we'll be like, oh, hey, we got this, sorry. And then all of a sudden, while all the other economies are taking a hit, China gets to rise because they're getting up from all of this economic and this bio stuff going on in their own country.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, now while the rest of the world is on the ground, China is getting up. And where are we getting all of our antibiotics? Where are we getting all of our PPE from, our masks and stuff? Where are we getting our medication from? China. You know what I'm saying? So to me, the pattern is clear. To me, you look at that and you go, oh, well, that's clearly an attack. And then when we look into the way that they infiltrated the media, the way that they have infiltrated Hollywood, the way that they infiltrated places like the NBA and other major sports industries, and they got like people like LeBron James talking about inequality while he's making millions of dollars off of slave labor children in China making his shoes, which have the communist hammer and sickle on them. Whoa.
Yeah. So I have one more question about COVID-19, but Javi, Javi, he's been active throughout the chat. Hi, Javi. He's asking, can we come to Arizona and help you protest? I feel so bad watching you by yourself.
That would be delightful. What I would like to do more than anything is I would like to see something like Child Lives Matter rallies or Save the Children rallies and movements all over the country. And I think that maybe one of the best ways to start would be to start something like every Saturday at City Hall in Phoenix, Arizona. I will do a Child Lives Matter rally at 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that if people started doing something like that in their own city, then maybe I wouldn't feel so alone. You know what I mean? And if you want to come to Arizona, then you can meet me there at that time, and we'll march together. Right. I'm all about unity, baby.
Yeah, you were also at Hollywood, right? A couple of days back.
Yeah. I went to the Child Lives Matter rally in Hollywood on the 31st. It was great.
So how do you think that's helping the cause? In the sense, do you think that the right people are watching those rallies, and is it helping? In what way is it helping?
Well, I'd like to think so. I would also like to believe that we were making history, and I wouldn't like to believe we were making history on Hollywood and Vine that day. And every shout and scream and every, protest that was made all up and down Hollywood Boulevard was echoing throughout all of that city, because it was the first of such rallies ever. The people, the pedophiles in Hollywood got called out in front of everybody. And dude, there were people honking horns and stuff. There was a whole lot of people that were in support of what we were doing, because I think a lot of the people in Hollywood, in California, and in Los Angeles have known the problem. They could feel the energy there, man. It was dense. But after we did what we did, man, we broke that up, bro. We broke that energy up. And we felt the difference, man.
And how do you feel? People also talking about in the chat, like how do you feel about the cops that try to either stop you or do strange things? Like how do you deal with that kind of antagonism?
Well, I've never gotten a problem from the cops. I've always had support of law enforcement. They've always been kind to me, and I've always been kind to them. I think that's pretty much what it comes down to. Each and every time they approach me, I have most of the time I have a sharp spear in my hand.
I saw that. Yeah.
You know, they technically could view me as a threat, but because of my vibe is like, hey, what's up? You know what I'm saying? It's not like, hey man, I have my rights, you know, you get out of my face, cop. You know, no, it's like, hey dude, what's up? I support law enforcement. I love you guys, and I will listen to whatever it is that they tell me. Because most of the time they're coming up to me and they're being chill. And especially if they're not, then I'm chill.
Right.
You know, especially if they're not, that's when you have to be chill.
So is it more like educating the people? Like when you're doing the rallies, from what I understand, there's two things that are going well with that. One is you're educating people, like you said, people stop and, you know, they're curious, they don't know and they would know. The other is it goes into the media, maybe not the mainstream media, but like people who are shooting videos, they put it on YouTube, and that's another way it's spreading the word, right?
That's absolutely right. And that's part of the reason, just part of the reason for the attire is that, you know, the face paint shows the dedication to America. And it is a kind of a native thing with the headdress and with the tattoos and the staff and stuff, showing that, hey man, we're all a tribe. We're all one American tribe. And that's something that stands out to people, I think. And then you combine that with the yelling and the singing that I do. Well, quite the potent combo.
Yeah. Javi is also saying, which also I also believe a lot, is that Jacob, you are a true leader. And I have something to say about that. So I feel like we need people like, again, this is just my opinion. We need people like you in those leadership roles. And I know, I mean, we can skip the question if you don't want to answer this, but I know you were considering that, like getting into a leadership role. But do you think we need those people who understand what's going on and also understand it from a spiritual perspective, like yourself, to be in those leadership roles? How do you feel about that?
Oh, I totally agree. And, you know, without bringing it up too much, that's part of the reason why I was running for president. But one thing I came to discover was this. First of all, I would probably be of far more value in the private sector than in the government, because the government has all sorts of restrictions. The government, you know, in many ways, you also have to walk on eggshells as somebody like the president, because you can't, you know, not to say you can't, but, you know, politically, it's not necessarily a good idea to talk the way that I talk. You know what I mean? All the cursing and stuff. So to me, the way I looked at it is this. Yes, I believe that people like myself do need to be in a leadership role. And that's why I've made my YouTube. That's why I've put all the information out there the way that I have for free. Notice I'm not, you know, advertising stuff in my videos. I'm just being like, yeah, here it is. All right. Knowledge always overcomes power. See you later. You know, and that's what I think real leadership is giving away the truth for free without any sort of expectation of anything in return. And when it comes to taking up like leadership roles in society, well, that's kind of why I've stepped forward and done what it is that I've done with my my shamanism thing and going out and doing these protests and stuff, even though I'm doing it alone, because that I think is evidence that other people can have this same amount of courage and have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That it isn't about the quantity, it's about the quality. You know, it isn't about how many people you have on your side. If you're a minority of one, the truth is the truth, to quote Gandhi. And I think that anyone and everyone who wields the truth has like almost like the blessing of God behind them. And in that way, one person can be an army. You can be an army.
Right. I think what it comes down to when people get into the leadership roles, for example, Trump or whoever, when they say something, people listen, right? Meaning, I mean, there are some people who are always skeptical, but people believe that it might be true. They at least consider it. But when we have things like YouTube channels, like what you're doing, what I'm doing, people are like, oh yeah, that's his opinion or her opinion. But when somebody gets into a leadership role, they kind of trust that, right? So it's both good and bad, because we're also trusting the bad guys, right? Just like media, we're trusting the media. I'm not we, but just average Joe out there. But what I'm trying to get to is, we can talk about it all we want, and we can do all the rallies we want, but if it doesn't get to that level of influence, right, where we are influencing if not thousands, millions of people at the same time, it's like just like a movement that works for some people but not for everyone.
I agree with you. And that's part of the reason why I was running, because I was hoping to gain that level of a platform, or I was aiming for that level of a platform, because I believe that the message that I have is worthy of millions of ears, especially when we start talking about the foster care system, the education system, especially when we start talking about things like the energy system and the energy supply in this country. We start talking about environmental issues. I have insight that most people just don't have. Are there other questions that you wanted to go on?
Yeah, so you still have time? You're not running late,
Dude,
right?
yeah, I'm good. I have hours. You're good.
Okay, yeah. So actually, there's just some casual comments people are posting. First of all, thanks a lot, people, for joining. And we're gonna do this again. For the questions we may not answer today. And Jake is on Facebook, and his website I'm gonna post on the YouTube description. And we are at Soul Freedom on YouTube, and we're planning to do more such Q&As, or maybe even a master class. Yeah, we talked about doing
Yeah.
like a master class, like a webinar where people can, you can teach us something, like for
I would
example, the
love that.
quantum stuff. There's a lot of quantum physics and stuff like that. Like, we can get into that. But people are also posting, Javi is actually posting, oh, you have a lot of energy doing 2 or 3 videos every day. How do you have so much energy?
Oh man, when you love helping, when you love, see, for me, whenever I see these issues, whenever I see these news stories, my mind is like, oh, putting these pieces together. Okay. And because most of my family isn't into this stuff, it's like, man, I gotta tell somebody. So I make a video. And when I make the video, I put it out there and people are like, oh yeah, I love this. This is great. Thank you. And it's like, hell yeah, dude.
So, question about your tattoos. I think it was Javi again who asked. So they're asking, or was it Queen? I forget. Somebody asked, what do your tattoos mean? And also, there's a spiritual meaning behind it, because I know you have a video on your YouTube channel about the spiritual meaning behind tattoos. So, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Well, on this hand, I have the planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. On this hand, I have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and then I have the runes. I have Viking runes here.
Mhm.
I have pyramids with vortexes coming off of them. The reason why I have these things on my hand, I also have the sun over here and the moon. The reason
Mhm.
why I have these things on my hand is because it's like I have the planets and the power of the pyramids at my fingertips.
Right.
These are symbolic of that, because I
Mhm.
understand the way that astrology works, because I understand the way that the pyramids of the planet work and the grid system works.
Mhm.
That's why I have the imagery. Also, pyramids, despite the fact that the Illuminati has given them a very bad name due to their symbolism, these are symbols that have been hijacked. Much the way that the swastika was hijacked by Nazis, these symbols have been hijacked. So, in the Viking runes, I have Viking blood into me, according to my father. They are also kind of like a Native American tribal style, because according to my grandmother, I have Native American blood in me as well. Um, all my tattoos have some sort of a meaning. Like these tattoos I got here on my wrists, I got after my heart was broken by a heartless wretch of a female. And she didn't treat me very well. So I have these here to remind me not to ever let anybody mistreat me ever again. I got the tattoos here on my arms of like the wall, the brick wall.
Is it the Pink Floyd wall?
Yeah, kind of actually.
Yeah.
Because I got him after my dad committed suicide, and it took about 36 hours or total or so to complete the tattoos on both arms. And my dad introduced me to Pink Floyd, in particular to the wall. We had that connection, Pink Floyd, and because he didn't always treat me very well, because there was a lot of trauma, because the fact that he committed suicide and all that stuff, there was a lot of pain with his memory, associated with his memory. And these tattoos helped me to deal with that pain and to channel the emotional pain through physical pain and almost like overcome it in that way. So these tattoos, it's like the whole idea was all in all, it's all just another brick in the wall. So there's some symbolism there too.
Yeah, someone's asking, did you do it yourself or somebody did for you?
Well, the stuff on the hands here, the runes and this stuff here, I did myself. I also did this Q I have here on my leg. I also did the tattoos I have here. I have a number of tattoos that I did myself on my leg. I also, this one here that I did. I also did the Volknot, this guy up here. I did this one in the mirror. And this one here is the Yggdrasil, or Odin's horse. All Viking symbols.
So I know there's a lot of pain involved. Like, is there any spiritual meaning behind it?
Yes. Part of shamanism is attaining altered states of consciousness. So tattooing and the driving out of the mind and the spirit from the body through pain is one of the oldest shamanic techniques. All you have to do is look into things like the Samoan leg tattoos. And that's a 3.5 day process. Some people die. Some people get like blood infections and die later. Some people die of the trauma during. It's pretty crazy. But each and every time, most everybody leaves their body on like a spiritual voyage, and then they end up coming back to their body while they're still getting tattooed. So they have a very spiritually deep experience during this tattooing process. And much of my tattoos I got under the influence of cactus or of cannabis. So it was like an up level of intensity. And that helped me to actually process a lot of the things, like say the pain associated with my dad's loss and stuff like that, was combining these things and the overcoming of pain. Because like, I'll just say, for example, like this stuff here on my ribs, I'll tell you that right there, 3.5 hours of, I don't want to do this anymore. And every single line hurt more than the one before it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
is it like therapy? Do you think it's like a therapy?
Yeah, it is. It's a way of dealing with emotional pain through physical pain and the release of physical pain endorphins. And this is something that Native Americans have practiced for many, many moons. And it's a part of shamanism. Every culture all over the world has done tattooing or scarification or something like that, with a few exceptions, of course. But pretty much every continent has some tribe or some group of people that does tattooing. And to me, I always wondered, like, why? Like, why? I don't understand. Like, what's the point? So then I figured, well, the only way to figure out is to do it. The only way to know is to try. And I never thought I'd be the bald white guy with a bunch of tattoos and gauges and stuff like that. But each and every tattoo in tribal society actually represents like an accomplishment of some sort. It's almost like the way that military people wear ribbons. In tribal societies, certain tattoos were like ribbons, except you wore them like on your body, or in some cases, like in the Polynesian cultures, you wore them on your face. And the Polynesian people would preserve their history by, after a warrior died, they would cut the warrior's head off, and all of the accomplishments on that warrior's face would end up being mummified. They'd mummify the heads, and then they'd have like these row of these heads with the story and the history of their ancestry written on their faces.
Wow.
Yeah, intense stuff. So when I found all that out, I was like, well, I gotta give it a shot. I gotta give this tattoo thing a shot. And once I started, I didn't want to stop.
Right. And also your name, Yellowstone Wolf. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, there's The story of the wolves of Yellowstone, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, and how the wolves of Yellowstone were removed for like a good 70 years from Yellowstone National Park. And in the process, a bunch of elk came out of the woods and into the canyons and ate all the foliage. And because all the foliage was eaten, there was no place for like little rodents or muskrats or whatever, beavers to hang out and do their thing. So the coyotes came in and started eating them up, and frogs and stuff couldn't exist because there wasn't like large grasslands where waters would pool and stuff like that. The whole ecosystem changed when they removed the wolves, and it did not do well. It didn't do very well at all. And then they reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone, and within a few months, everything changed in the park. I'm serious, like not even a couple of weeks, the whole landscape of the park changed, and I'll explain how. So the wolves started by chasing all the elk and the deer out of the canyons and back into the forest. That's number one. Number two, the wolves also chased out the coyotes, right? So they killed the coyotes, ate the coyotes, they killed the deer and the elk and stuff, and change that ecosystem, change that food chain, that lapse in the food chain. And in the process, the foliage was allowed to grow in like the grasslands. And because the foliage was allowed to grow, the roots were far more entangled. And because the roots were far more entangled, the dirt wasn't like collapsing with every rainfall. The dirt was actually being held together by the root structures. So the rivers actually got more narrow in their channels, and in the process, more smaller pools of water formed at the base of the park. And then beavers came in and they started building dams. That changed the course of the rivers a little bit. Then frogs, and then little, muskrats or whatever, then all these different animals came back in. Bears came back into the woods, and they reinforced the kill of the wolves by killing elk and occasionally killing a coyote or something like that. And all the while, the wolves are just living and doing their thing. And the whole ecosystem transforms. We were talking like even birds of prey coming back into the park. Mm-hmm. All right. And it's because the wolves have something known as a trophic cascade in the environment, where they take their rightful place at the top of the food chain, and it has a cascading effect over the rest of the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So, the name Yellowstone wolf was given to me because this is essentially the effect that I have had in certain communities, in certain spiritual communities on the planet, where it's like, I essentially took that top of the food chain position, and there was a trophic cascade where the ecosystem began to heal.
So does that happen on a physical level or like an astral plane?
Oh yeah, it's on both. Okay. Ever since I essentially took this position, a large amount of things have changed. In particular, just as an example, Monsanto went down. Mm-hmm. That is huge in the ecosystem. That's like taking out a predator or an evil scavenger in the ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? Another good example would be, and I'm not taking credit for this by any means, because this is all thanks to the good people and the white hats and all that stuff. But, all the resignations, all these changes that have happened over the last several years, a lot of it started when I did what I did in 2016 with the solar flash. And then what I've been watching is ever since then, there's been these large amounts of changes, these huge changes that have taken place, and they keep stacking on top of one another. And like I said, I'm not claiming that it's not all me. What it is that for quite some time, the higher dimensions of light above the physical body and in the ecosystems were being dominated and controlled by evil forces. And then when I did what I did, it's almost like all that black magic got erased and it snapped back to them. And now all their black magic is snapping back on them because a real Yellowstone wolf has entered the ecosystem. A real apex predator has entered the ecosystem, and this has changed the dynamic of the entire ecosystem.
Okay. Yeah, I think you talk about it in one of your videos, is that they reached out to you, right? Like you were talking about the white hats. They reached out to you, right?
Because they'd been reaching out to me for quite some time. I just didn't know if I was going crazy or not. Right. And eventually it got to a point where I realized that I wasn't going crazy, and I kind of realized what was going on. And then eventually got to a point to where I really realized, and then that was when they activated me. And that's when I've been really working with them like nonstop, consciously focused on doing certain things in particular.
And even, I mean, even these days, it's an ongoing process, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. When I hold that sign that says Q sent me, that's not a joke.
I see. And it's both on physical and the astral level that's happening.
Nah, not so much on physical. It's not like I have somebody showing up and knocking on my door. I don't have somebody issuing me orders. I don't go to like a deep underground military base where I'm looking over paperwork and stuff like that. That's not quite how it works. Okay. You see, because I haven't signed any non-disclosure agreements, because I haven't signed any above top secret contracts, I wouldn't have access to those types of facilities.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? The only way you're going to get in one of those places is if you sign one of those things. You know what I'm saying? And then from there you're golden, but if you talk about it, you go to prison. So I have the advantage of knowing that all this stuff exists, knowing it's all there, knowing all this weaponry, knowing all this stuff, and not having signed any of the non-disclosure agreements. And if we understand that we're fighting economic and information warfare based off of the suppression of technology and the suppression of information, then getting out the information and getting out the truth about the technology is key. And so essentially it's like I'm like a key to this change that we're looking to create in the Q movement, because I understand all this stuff in a way that they understand it at the top.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I haven't signed anything. I just did a shitload of research.
Yeah. So I think one thing, like you're saying, it's supposed to be happening, and it is happening at a grassroots level. We all are going to contribute to this, but the thing, what I feel, again, this is my opinion, is we have pieces of the puzzle everywhere. You know, there's you, there's Austin, there's so many other folks who are trying to do things. I'm sure there's thousands and millions of people who are doing this. But what I feel is that there's no like concentrated, united effort. And that's where I think we can use technology, for example, websites or communities where we can get together. I know you're doing it with your YouTube channel, your website, Facebook, all that, but I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
No, in all honesty, I just try to summarize.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, okay, let me ask you this way. What do you suggest we can do, for example, people listening to this who want to contribute, right? They're listening to all these messages, but we don't have, like, where do we go? Who do we talk to, right?
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Well, look, part of the reason why I was running for president was because I had this vision of what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was I wanted to go around the country. I wanted to host events where I could talk to people about all the stuff that I'm talking to you about now, right? So I wanted to use the platform and the campaign to reach millions of people with this message that is very, very important, that is essential for the stability of our society. But what I came to understand is that, like I said, there are certain constraints, there are certain limitations that come with running for office that don't necessarily have to be there if I'm a part of the private sector. So I think that we as individuals, first of all, have to understand that there's some people that are made for being in office, and these people need to run. So if you're one of those people, that really want to make a change and you're like, you know what, I'm going to run for office, then you do that. And you do that balls to the wall. Right. But if you're one of these people that doesn't necessarily have to run for office, but you want to create some sort of a change, then what you have to do is you have to essentially be the leader in your own community. You kind of have to do what it is that I've done, where you have to kind of, if you're going out alone, then go out alone. If you talk to your friends and your family and they're like, yeah, I don't know about all that, I don't want to do that, then don't allow that to sway you in whether or not you go yourself. And in the process, consistency builds momentum. And if I can't necessarily travel around the country and do what it is that I'm talking about, maybe I could do it via Zoom. Maybe I could do it on my YouTube. And so there are different avenues that each and every person can use to create the change that they want. I think most people, what they have to realize is like, what change do you really want? Yeah. And if, okay, say for example, you want to end the child sex trafficking. Okay, cool. I'm all for that. Let's definitely help to end child sex trafficking. How do we do that? Well, we have to teach people the code. We have to teach people what to look for. We have to teach people how to recognize people when they're being trafficked, children when they're being trafficked. We have to recognize the code and all that stuff. And you have to be somewhat active about it. And imagine the difference that you could make in a year's time if every weekend on Saturday at 3 p.m. you met at City Hall and did a Save the Children, Child Lives Matter rally. And that's not asking too much. That's asking like 2-3 hours out of your week. You know what I'm saying? And then it doesn't necessarily have to be that type of rally. It could be something else entirely. It could be whatever your shtick is, whatever your platform is.
And how can people feel kind of protected or covered? Because I know, I mean, if I were to do that, I would be worried about the cops. You know, how can people feel safe when they're doing that?
Well, look, safety is a state of mind. All right. There's been many times where I've gone out on like street corners and saying some of the stuff I've said, I definitely watch who's getting close to me. You know what I mean? Because you never know with some of these people.
Yeah.
But I've never been worried about the police. I've more so been worried about cabal members than I've been worried about the police. Anytime and every time the police approach me, I am all good. I am calm. I am chill. I'm, kind. And I'm telling you, that's all you have to be with police officers. Compliant, calm, and kind.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of stories on YouTube where, cops just, randomly, I don't know if those stories are true or not. They just randomly arrest people. I don't know if they're protesters or who they are. They arrest them and put them in a van which doesn't even have any ID.
Okay, what you're talking about is what's going on in places like Portland, okay, and places like Seattle. And I would go as far as to say, good. These people are not protesters, okay? The government would not just round people up like that and take them into unmarked vans if these people were just protesters, okay? What we have to understand is Antifa and BLM are Marxists and fascists. And they are doing what has been done in Marxist and fascist countries as far as the overthrow of governments, the tearing down of statues, the abolishing of the police, the taking over of courthouses, all that kind of stuff. They've done this in every single communist takeover that they've done in every other country. George Soros has admitted that he has done this and used this formula in more than one country to take over nations and influence economies. So these individuals that are out there and called protesters by the Mockingbird media that are getting round up and put it in vans, these people are covering their faces. These people are vandalizing property. These people are a part of a movement that is literally trying to overthrow the government. Now, anytime and every time I've ever gone to a gun rally, a Second Amendment rally, or I've gone to a Trump rally, anytime I've ever gone to a Save the Children rally or any of my own All Children Matter rallies, there has never been a person that is covering their face. There's never been a person that has been agitating police officers or causing a fuss or a problem. We've always been compliant with law enforcement, and law enforcement has always been compliant with us. And anytime and every time I've gone out there and done my protests. I'll say this way. There's one time that I actually had cuffs put on me, and I'll explain the reason why. It's actually really funny. So I was on top of a mountain, and I was it was late at night. It was before this whole COVID 1984 thing. So it was packed, a bunch of college kids. And I went up on top of the mountain, and I had my drum, and I'm banging on my drum, and I'm singing my song. And it sounds like a gunshot's going off on top of the mountain. And apparently somebody called the cops and said some nut had a gun on top of the mountain, was firing it off. So the police were called. They show up as I'm walking down the mountain with my drum and stuff, my staff. And they have their lights on me, like, get on the ground. Hands up, dude. So I get on the ground, turn around, hands on the head. So then they come up, they strap me with the cuffs on my back, and they put them on tight, and they pulled me up. And, I had my headdress on with my face paint, looking totally ridiculous, of course. I tell them, like, hey, you guys, you got nothing to worry about. Like, I'm not going to harm you. I'm not going to bother you. You can chill. And they're like, so we heard you had a gun, do you really have a firearm or no? And I was like, no, sir, not at all. I don't have a firearm. I have a drum. You can check it out. It's in my backpack. So they open my backpack. They see it's a drum. And I'm sitting there just having a good time. The cuffs are still on me. It's still kind of tight. And I was friendly about it. I was like, hey, you guys, I'm just saying, I'm not a threat. I don't have a gun. Can you please just loosen the cuffs or something? Because this sucks. You know what I mean? And they got a kick out of that. They laughed about it.
Okay.
So eventually it ended with them taking the cuffs off, apologizing for putting the cuffs on me in the first place, saying, hey, I hope you understand. Yeah, it's no problem. I ended up making a lot of friends with Tempe PD. And now they all know who I am, and they know I'm a nice guy, and they know I'm nothing to worry about. But imagine if I had chosen another route.
Right. I think one of the reasons people are afraid is they don't know the rights, because we don't know, our rights, right? Like, for example, if I'm protesting, I'm like, can they arrest me just for protesting?
No, it's freedom of speech. They can't arrest you for protesting. And if they do, it's unconstitutional. Now, if you're doing something like damaging property,
right,
or if you're doing something like, say, standing, like what the cops are telling me I was doing on Mill, was they were saying I was standing in front of the business's door and I was yelling and screaming, and that could be considered disturbing the peace. That could be considered
like a private property thing.
Yeah, private property, that I'm obstructing their business. So it's like, oh, okay, well then I'll just move. And I moved and everything was fine. But if I had been like, man, I got a right to be here, then they would have said, this guy's got an attitude, man. Hey, we're just asking you to move. Fuck you, man. No, I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah, because most of the cops are nice. It's just that we have to just keep an eye for the bad ones, just like what happened with George.
Well, did you see the body cam footage of all that?
Yeah, a couple of days back, right?
Yeah. I mean, he was most certainly not necessarily compliant now, was he?
But some people are saying,
and the fact of the matter is, with George Floyd, that motherfucker didn't have any legs when they put him on the gurney. His head was shaved when they put him on the gurney, when it wasn't shaved before. His nose is more narrow.
Yeah.
Okay? There wasn't even EMTs. They didn't bother trying to revive him. The whole thing is a Marxist communist smokescreen for all this BLM Antifa stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was watching, because those videos are completely different, just like they shot them two different times. So Emerald Lynn is saying, I think Chicago needs an exorcism. I would participate in a prayer during a live stream.
Oh, that's a great idea. I will definitely pray for Chicago. I think that's another thing that we should probably start doing, is like, if we're going to have like weekly Save the Children rallies or Child Lives Matter rallies, we should probably also have like weekly mass meditations or weekly mass prayer sessions. And maybe we could combine the two, where, at your Child Lives Matter or your Save the Children rallies, you also do a good 5-10 minute prayer, where it's a moment of silence and everybody just stays in silent prayer or something like that.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, let's talk about it after this. Maybe we can set up a weekly call or something, and people can join in. And we can also do a combination of the master class, like maybe half an hour of teaching and then half an hour of meditation, something like that. Yeah, so people who are listening, if you want to join in those classes and meditations, we'll post the links on this video after, like, maybe in 1 or 2 days. And also do post in the comments what are the things you want Jake to talk about in his classes and webinars, because as you can see, he knows a lot.
Sometimes I know too much.
Yeah,
I just keep going on and on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you feel something we haven't talked about and which you really want to talk about and spread the word right now?
Sure. Well, it really all depends on where people want me to go with it. Everything is kind of interconnected. I would like to start by saying that half of the reason why we have an issue with child sex trafficking and with these networks is not just because it's being used for blackmail and corruption and all that stuff, but because there are 3 things that are being kept from the public mind. One is the 0-point energy. Another is the inertia propulsion. And lastly is the gold-based currency, or the Nasara Jasara. And these 3 things have all of these different veils put in front of it. That is the Mockingbird media, that is the Hollywood entertainment, that is the Washington power structures and the swamp, that is the child sex trafficking in CPS, that is X, Y, and Z, the corruption in the FBI, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, all these different veils have been put in front of these different like life transforming technologies or life transforming systems of government,
right,
economic systems. And when we connect the two, when we connect the idea that the child sex trafficking is on behalf of a globalist organization that is not just doing this in the United States, but all over the globe, and that they're like abducting children from third world countries, or they're actually like breeding children into this stuff so that they can perpetuate this globalist system, and that all of it is connected to suppressing the truth about technology, suppressing the truth about the currency system, and most importantly, suppressing the truth about our spiritual capabilities and what it is that we are able to do, what it is that, how it is that we're able to affect reality. And if you just look at some of the things that I've been able to do and some of the things that I'm telling you I've done, then we are capable of incredible things, really incredible things. But first of all, we have to have faith. And the whole system has been set up to where we don't have faith in ourselves. We're brought up in schools to trust authority and authority alone, to not trust our intuitive wisdom, to believe that psychic powers is bullshit. You know what I'm saying? We've been taught to believe that we're just these like meat sacks that came out of happenstance and coincidence, you know, and then we when we die, we rot in the ground and that's it. That we're like machines, we're like bio machines, and that's not the case at all. You know, so when we understand the way that the harvesting of our children also ties into the suppression of the truth about our capabilities as human beings, not just psychically, not just physically, but also technologically and also financially, then we can really begin to make some headway on the real problems in society. And when we understand the way that the resources that we're using end up affecting the environment, the relationship we have to that, the way that the information that we're consuming has an effect on the environment and the relationship we have with that and with each other, then we see that this has multiple different cascading effects in society when we allow this corrupt system to just go because it's the status quo. You know what I mean? And the only way we're actually going to have like a seventh generation, the only way we're actually going to have a generation of children ahead of ourselves that is going to thrive and prosper is if we solve these problems now. Because the fact of the matter is, with all the chemtrailing that's been done, with all the petroleum waste that's been put in the air and into the water, with all the glyphosate that's been put into the soil and into the water, into the air, with all the abuses of all the human beings all over the planet and the child sex trafficking and all that stuff, this planet is in a desperate need for a revamp, for a whole new system. Like I said, that was part of the reason why I was running for president. But, you know, technically I'm 33, so I technically can't run. Technically, I think you have to be 35 or 36. But I will be running in 2024, I assure you. But
you have one vote from me at least.
Fuck yeah, dude. Hey, dude, I'm going for it in 2024.
Oh, cool. Can I be the vice president?
I don't know about all that, but
that was a tricky question. Yeah.
But one thing I will tell you is this: we need leaders in this world, and we need leaders that do, not just say. And I'm doing all I can with the limited resources that I have. And if I had more resources, then I'd be doing a whole lot more. You know what I mean? That's why I have Starseed Academy, because that's like, you know, a way that I can kind of do both at the same time. Because at Starseed Academy, I'm teaching people all this stuff. I'm educating people on all this stuff. I'm also teaching people on techniques on how they can expand their consciousness or whatever, how they can affect reality, you name it. And I'm also getting the opportunity to make some sort of financial gain off of my knowledge. And it's really not all that much. It's actually for like pennies on the dollar compared to all the hours that I've put into all this research and this development. It's been decades worth of my life. And I'm, you know, asking for $33 an hour, as you know, for my services, and $55 for like a 4-hour course, and you know, either $111 per month for my Starseed Academy Cyber Tribe mentorship, or one-time payment of $777 for a lifetime membership. And we meet twice a week, you know, and the hope is that will end up creating some sort of change. One other thing that we do at Starseed Academy is we give people like a list of all of the genetically modified organisms and all the different types of food that have glyphosate in it so that they don't buy it at the store. We also give them a list of all the organic foods that they can buy at the store. That way they don't eat and consume glyphosate and all these other poisons. We also give them a list of all the clean water supplies and water bottle companies that are good to buy from. You know, we even go as far as if you ask for it, to give you a calendar, a 13-month calendar of 28 days, so that you can get back in rhythm with the moon cycles and with the solstices and stuff like that, with real time, and really get out of this Gregorian mind control calendar that was invented by the Romans.
Right. So connected to what you were just talking about, Arnika Rose. Hi, Arnika. She's asking, I think it's a she. Yeah, I think it's a she.
Yeah,
Arnika Rose. Yeah. I shouldn't say it. They are a she. I'm trying to be politically correct. I don't want to lose subscribers. So Arnika is asking, can you explain what 0 point energy would look like in our society today?
Sure. Well, it really all depends on the avenue which we go with it. If we do something like the Tesla coils, Tesla technology, then what we'll end up seeing is like a Tesla coil at like certain areas in the ecosystem or certain areas in the city. And then these Tesla coils would end up like uniting and creating a larger system of free electromagnetic energy, free wireless energy that you could use and tap into with like an antenna or something like in your backyard or something like that. And you could thusly power your home that way. There's also another route that we could go. And that is where what we could do is, so we don't have to transform our lives too radically just yet, what we could do is get something like a 0 point energy generator and hook that up to the electrical grid system of our home directly. And then you could end up powering your home for, you know, the cost of the generator. And you don't ever have to worry about, you know, like a power outage or something like that, because your home isn't operating off the electricity running through wires. I think that when we really get into this whole 0 point energy thing and wireless energy, what we're going to end up seeing is things like telephone poles coming down, telephone wires and stuff like that, or electricity wires, you know, these massive structures that go across whole like mountain ranges and stuff. All that stuff's going to come down. All that stuff is going to be part of deconstruction crews. And we're going to end up recycling all that metal, recycling all those telephone poles. We're going to end up recycling all these things to create a new and better society. But only when we've already established these 0 point energy engines and systems throughout the rest of the country through the free market. We, more than anything, we don't want the government involved, other than allowing the government allowing us to do what the government should have been allowing us to do in the early 1900s. And that's why I think that I would probably be better off where I'm at, as opposed to running for president and leaving it to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump and his administration are focused on taking care of these child sex trafficking. They are focused on taking care of the massive amounts of poverty in the country, whether it be in the Hispanic or the Black community or in the Native American communities. This administration has done more for these communities than any administration before. So there's some very real world issues that need to be handled by the president and by, you know, legislative bodies and stuff like that, that I think that if they do that, while we're doing this stuff with the 0 point energy, while we're doing this stuff with the inertia propulsion and the anti-gravity, then we can really have like a winning system.
Yeah, I think again, so where would people go? Like, let's say people want to explore that technology, build something. What is a good starting point? Like, you know, just Google stuff, or?
Well, yeah, you know, here's the thing. If you really do enough research, there's actually some like free energy, like Tesla coil engines out there. You can find them online. It isn't all that difficult. Sometimes you can end up finding like blueprints on how to make them. And I think that what we're going to end up seeing, because Donald Trump is in office and because Patriots are in control, is that these patents are going to be coming out, or these discoveries that we've had for quite some time are going to be slowly leaked online, or people that discover these things are not going to have the patents confiscated. So it may not necessarily be that a bunch of patents get released, but rather that a bunch of people figure out new ways of getting the 0 point energy and using that as a means of making it. So, for example, you know those flashlights that you can shake up and they generate energy and electricity. Okay, well, imagine if you had a bunch of those shakers that produce energy and electricity, and you had them wrapped around like a coil or something like that. And then you used the tiniest little bit of energy to shock this coil into spinning every time it came around. And each time it came around, you used like 10 volts or something like that of energy to end up creating 1,000 volts throughout the use of all these little flashlight shaker things. And then you took those 1,000 volts that were produced via that 10 volt of energy, and then you powered that into, or directed that into some sort of a grid system. Okay, that's how easy this stuff is. Okay, so the whole idea is that you're putting in very little energy and getting a whole lot more energy out of it. So anybody can do this kind of stuff.
So I'm pretty sure the government already knows this. They build stuff. So what you're saying is it's going to come out soon?
Well, what I'm saying is that technically, if you look into the patents that the Navy already released, it's already come out. It's just the Mockingbird media isn't covering it.
Yeah, but eventually you think they're gonna, let it out?
Well, they did. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They already released the 0-point energy device via patents, and you can look it up on Google. I have it in my top secret. What was that?
No, I was going to ask. I mean, I'm not talking about the technology. I'm talking about the actual products.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is that, look, we in the private sector have to pick up the ball here. So what I would say is that I think it'll come out when people like Elon Musk get on board. That I think it'll come out when people like Elon Musk look at that and go, that I could make a lot of money on. That is, innovative. I'm going to use that technology as opposed to X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. And then again, we come back to the same chicken and egg situation where we need those right leaders to be making those decisions. Because
dude, let me tell you something. If I had millions of dollars, it'd already be done.
So you're saying we need leaders who have the money, but they also need we need leaders who have money.
We need visionary leaders with large pockets. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is we really don't need too much when it comes to this whole free energy stuff, because the supplies to buy it really, it's not all that expensive. And that's what's so frustrating is that I wish people like Elon Musk or even people like Donald Trump before he became president would have invested into this type of technology. But the thing is that because of who was in the government, it wasn't allowed.
Right. Yeah. Because I was watching this video, they were saying you can make water out of air. There's a device, you just make water out of thin air.
And why aren't we bringing that to the children in Africa that are dying of dehydration? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if it's really about how expensive it is to create this stuff, well, dude, come on, we have a bunch of scrap metal sitting in junkyards. We could easily use something like cannabis as a resource for plastic as opposed to extracting a bunch of oil. We could do all sorts of stuff that could bring these technologies, not just to the people of the United States, but to the world. Now, I'm of the opinion that first of all, I totally sympathize with the children of Africa. It's like, oh my God, and same thing with the children of India and the poverty in some of these places, where it's just like, it's so bad.
Yeah.
But we in America need to learn how to take care of ourselves first, because we have poverty here. Mm-hmm. We have children living on the streets. We have children, starving in this country. We have children that are neglected and abused. And our system, our foster care system, our group home system is not cutting it. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason why I have my revamp of the foster care system and the group home system on my YouTube, because I saw all these problems. I'm like, look, all we have to do is this, and at least start here, So what we need is, like you were saying, real leaders that have some sort of financial backing and a vision. Mm-hmm. They have some sort of a plan of like, okay, well, because I've been on the ground floor, I see this problem, and this problem are glaring. We can fix it by doing this, and this, and then let's see how it goes. But the thing is, most people, and this is kind of true with the education system too, most people would rather have a system that is guaranteed to fail but it's what they're used to, than have a system that might fail or might succeed and be better than the old one. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So that's
Mm.
why it is that I think that we should rely on the private sector instead of relying on government to do the job for us of like, well, are you going to release these vehicles? When are we going to get these vehicles? When are we going to get this technology? It's like, no, 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 no. The technology's there. What we have now is a government that is willing to cooperate to create freedom and prosperity in the United States as opposed to suppressing this technology. So we need to take advantage in the private sector and go, okay, this is our chance to move forward because we have this window in time where this president is willing to allow this to happen. Whereas people like Obama, Bush, Clinton, these people, there's no way.
So if somebody wants to do it, don't they have to worry about the patents? Because if the patent is already taken, we can't do anything, right?
Well, kind of, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. But the thing is, based on what it is that I was telling you earlier about how you could easily create like essentially an infinite energy engine through these little flashlight batteries and a little electrical thing that's putting out 10 watts that spins this thing around,
Right.
dude, there's all sorts of ways that you can do that. You know, there's all sorts of other ways that are actually a lot less elaborate than that to create 0 point energy.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is understand the physics of it and the way that energy, frequency, and vibration work. And then all you have to do is harness the energy that is already in the vacuum. That's what 0 point energy is all about, is extracting energy from the vacuum. Because everything is spinning, because energy is always flowing through everything, all you have to do is extract the energy from that flow.
Right. Cool. Let's wrap it up soon. So I just want to read out a couple of comments. Javi
Yeah.
saying, as soon as they flip the switch, there will be a flood of visionaries with deep pockets, myself included, just waiting. So, Javi, yeah, that's a very positive attitude. You know what I was thinking, Jake? Maybe we can set up something, like we were talking about the website and the webinars, all that. Maybe we should set up something, or I'm going to do something about it, but maybe we can collaborate, is where people can get together and talk about these ideas and not just talk about it like, for example, the Chicago person, I forget her name, who wants to meet together and do something or do it online, so we can start a small community there. But for now, people who are logged in and listening to this, you can go to either Jake's Facebook page, which is Starseed. Can you tell the full name of
Oh,
your
no.
Facebook page?
My Facebook page is just my name, Jake Angeli, Angel with an I on the end.
Uh-huh.
My YouTube is Starseed Academy channel. That's 4 words, stars in the sky. Seed is what you put in the ground. Academy channel. And
Right.
I have hundreds and hundreds of hours there. You guys, enough. Everything that the cabal doesn't want you to know is on my YouTube.
Cool. Yeah, and our YouTube is Soul Freedom. We also on Facebook, Soul Freedom. And my name is Lokesh Rai. If you can hit me up on Facebook as well. And as you can see, we have a lot of things planned. And just trying to see if there's anything else. Is there anything, last words you want to say before we wrap it up? And then we can talk about what we want to do, like the next show.
In all honesty, I pretty much said everything that I would like to say. My main goal is exposing the truth about the child sex trafficking rings, the pedophilia and the highest levels of power, how it's connected to the suppression of technology, to the suppression of a different currency system, how it's connected to the suppression of our spiritual awareness and our species evolution. If anything, I would just be curious if anybody has any questions. If anybody's still around, if they have questions that I haven't answered, I still have energy in
Yeah.
me.
So I'm pretty sure we're going to get a lot of people watching this later. So what I'm thinking, and people are going to post questions. So what we can do is I'm going to make a list of those questions, and then both. Yeah. Oh, some Javi is saying both your souls are a beam of light. Oh, thank you, Javi. Yeah, thanks, Javi. If you're on Facebook, let's connect, brother. Brother, right? Yeah, I think it's a brother. I'm getting confused with the genders today, but but yeah, my name is Lokesh, and the last name is Rai. Sometimes I don't post my full name on the YouTube videos, so you can hit me up, Lokesh Rai, or on Facebook, Soul Freedom, or on Jake's Facebook as well. So we'll do another round of Q&A, and we'll also do a webinar where Jake can teach us stuff. And the third thing is build a community site, and that's what I also do. I have a business of creating websites, so I'm going to work on that, like a nonprofit website where people can get together, meet up, or create these Tesla coils or whatever they want to do. And yeah, so those three things they're coming, and I'm very excited, Jake, for coming online. It's been a pleasure, brother. Thanks, appreciate everything that you're doing. Namaste. And we'll keep in touch, and this video is going, and maybe we can what do you think, 1 week, or maybe we should wait 2 weeks for the next video?
Oh, let's do it in a week, man. I got a week.
All right.
Yeah, let's do it in a week.
All right, guys. So we're gonna post the schedule of the video on YouTube as well as on Facebook. And thanks everybody for joining in. And thank you, Jake.
Thank you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Let's definitely do this again soon. And I most certainly like the idea of getting together, talking about this Tesla coil stuff or this Tesla energy stuff. I'd also like to talk about, anything and everything that people would like to know. I'm an open book, and I have no problem helping people out.
All right. Thank you, Jake. Namaste.
Namaste.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.